Good morning, everybody. It's Lisa from Barclay Jones here, and I am joined by Volcanic. We get everywhere up to. We're here today to look at fueling your recruitment websites for more of the 4 C's. God forbid what we're going to talk about today. I'm hoping you're all well, and I'm hoping that a lot of you that have had kids over the last 6 months, although hold on, let's just put the comma in the right place. Who've not had kids, although if you have had them and you're back at work, rock and roll. But if you've also had to look after them and you're anything like me and you've got an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old boy, both of them seem to be going through puberty and also turning into Satan, you'll know how I'm feeling right now about having a week without them and at work and not having to worry about it. So obviously myself and Steve are on the webinar with you today, your lovely host. Steve, would you like to introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hey Lisa, lovely to be here today on the webinar with you as always. I have 2 kids. I can squarely say that I love them. I just don't like them very much at the moment. So we are getting very, very close to them going back to school, I think next week. And yeah, literally counting the days. So yes, the work and the homeschooling and everything in between has been interesting to say the least. But on a work note, obviously we've known each other for an incredibly long time now, and I run sales here at Volcanic, and yeah, we've partnered with you guys for many years now at this company and in previous companies. So yeah, really keen to see what we can do together and some of the hints and tips that we can share that will benefit our mutual client base.
Lovely stuff. So those of you that you don't know me, I'm the little triangle in the bottom right hand corner, Barclay Jones, and we specialise in recruitment training, and we specialise in websites in terms of working with lovely Volcanic customers, for example, to get them as optimised as possible, hence why I'm muscling in today. We are very interested in tech stacks for recruiters because we've recently worked with one recruiter who had 25 staff and was spending in excess of 200 grand on systems and not making any money from them. So we're going to save them some money there. And recruitment marketing is a massive passion of mine. So all of that ties in quite nicely. So you need to think about what you're going to leave here with today, because turning up, having a bit of a session on a webinar, going back to work, hope to God to do something different, ain't on our agenda. So we need to make sure that you're going to have a newfound appreciation for the power of your website. It is your virtual recruitment consultant. And if you do not treat it like that, you're not going to make any money from it. And equally, I'm sure at the moment, the last thing you want on your agenda is anyone in your business or anything in your business not making you any money. So we're going to give you some really rock hard tips today that you can take away. We want more candidates, clients and colleagues. And trust me, if you think you've got enough candidates, think again. You've probably got the wrong candidates. You are definitely not at the moment, with the current stats the way they are, benefiting from the right candidates applying for your jobs, but you're just getting lots of them bottlenecking your process. You probably need better clients as well. And absolutely colleagues, a lot of the people I'm working with now are starting to ramp up their recruitment. So we really need to think about that. We need to make sure that the 4 C's doesn't necessarily include content. What we're looking at is cash, but content should drive that. And we need to understand how little content we can get away with in order to generate that ROI. We definitely want to do things differently, and I've got some quotes to get you started. And ultimately, you need to know that you can change how you do things. COVID has taught us some lessons, whether or not it's how much we love our kids, Steve, or about whether or not we want to have breakfast with them in the morning. And don't worry, that the children analogy will stop any second. Just believe me, the relief. But it's also taught us that actually a lot of us don't want to go back to how we used to do things, and we've got an opportunity to change. So we have to take some positives from that. Let's start with some chat. Only 14% of people in the world have goals. Not good. But those that do are 10 times more effective at what they are doing. We need to get into that 14% or nudge it up to 16, 17, 18%. What are your goals? Could you please go into your question or your chat panel and let us know what your goals are? We're really interested to understand. They could be personal, although if you're looking to knit a woolly jumper by Christmas, I'm not sure that's what we're going to cover off today. But if your goals are business-led, professional-led, getting your brain back in the zone, chuck all of that in there. We're really keen to know about it. We're not going to share that necessarily with people today, but I'm interested in what your goals are. And obviously, Steve and I are very, very keen to make sure that we can tick some of those off for you today as well. Does someone want to increase conversions? Don't we flip in all? We actually need the right level of leads in our business as well, because right now the stat, and I've got so many stats, seriously, call me when it's a millionaire, get your friend to answer a question. But apparently 50% of the leads that we generate are of no use to us whatsoever. That's not good, is it?
Just jumping in there, Lisa. So it's an interesting comment, isn't it, that somebody says they want to improve conversions. My question would be, do we have a firm grip on what our conversion rate has been month on month for the past 3, 6, 12 months? Right? We need to know where we're starting from. Improvement is great, but improvement upon what? So I think that's really, really important. You know, certainly from a Volcanic perspective, we are incredibly data driven, right? The whole business is run from a data perspective. So there's probably very little that you could ask that we don't have a Salesforce report on that would show us pretty much any metric within the business you would want to know if you were leading that business. So whether or not it's average order values, whether it's the number of leads coming in, whether it's the conversion rates of those leads, whether it's the sources of those leads, you know, pipeline that we generate this month, when is it likely to close? You know, that gives us an incredible amount of visibility to predict probably 2-3 months ahead. You know, we will know that if we have X amount of pipeline and average order value is this and our time to close is that, what we are going to pretty much do with pretty good accuracy, I would suggest, for certainly September, October and November. Okay, so yeah, it's great that people want to improve conversions, but we've got to understand where we're starting from. And to your point of having a goal, well, rather than just improve, what are we aiming for? What is our conversion rate that we want to shoot for? Because then we can chip away at it. We can make those steps towards getting towards the improvement of the conversions. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you for that. So I want you to take notes. We're going to be quizzing you at the end. Tips are great, but I don't attend webinars for tips. I attend webinars to get enough information that I can change what I'm doing. I can fix what's broken. I can improve stuff. And your brain is not on your side because we forget most of what happens. Literally, so it's like 12:15 now. We're going to finish the webinar in about half an hour. Within an hour of that, you'll have forgotten 50% of what we've told you. So do not rely on your memory. If you come across stuff, and I'm a big fan when you go to when you're listening to podcasts or going to events and you write something down, your body's made you do that for a reason. Writing it down isn't enough. What you need to do is do something with it. So bear that in mind because we're going to be wanting you to get some ROI from the time that you're spending on this now. I want you to think about a few things. There's a fantastic article that I found a couple of days ago by McKinsey, and ironically it was written in May this year, but it is so relevant to where we are now. And it's something that you, if you're a marketeer on this event, give it to your recruiters and your sales leads and your business leads. If you're a business leader, read it and give it to your staff. But you've got to think about, actually, we have been more innovative as an industry in the last 6 months, theoretically, than we have been in a while. Now, there's a lot of arguments over the years to say that during times of crisis, we become more effective. You know, during wartime and stuff like that, we develop better medicines, better weapons and things like that. During this time, we've had to become more data-driven, more technologically driven. But actually, for some of our businesses, we've just had to become better remote workers. For some recruiters, they've not done any of that, and that's really going to affect them going forward. I really want you to think about endurance. We're in a test of our times right now, and as marketeers and leaders, we need to be more effective than ever and more critical of the processes, data and systems that we've got. But we need to be focused as well, because just turning up for work and going crazy is not enough. Trust me, that's what I've done every day this week, and I've learned a lesson from that. It's almost like I've been waiting for my kids to go back to school. It's not good enough just to turn up. We've got to be focused. And with marketing and with websites, often what we're focused in are the wrong things. Brand, for example, content, color, clicks. So good. Not enough. We have to be focused on what the end game is. We have to be focused on what our bank manager would be pleased with, not what our mum would be impressed by. So let's keep focused on that. Let's think less content, more marketing. Let's think about the buyer's journey. Let's take control of it rather than just create stuff and hope to God they grab it. The marketers that I work with and mentor, we take them through this journey and we make it really simple to move from all the fluffy HubSpot, the stuff that personally I love, but move from that to hard-ass marketing, assertive, don't you dare furlough me because if you do, it's all going to go horribly wrong kind of mentality. I also want you to think personas, because actually when you think personas, and they're not as complicated as some brand marketing companies make out, The average recruitment marketer can deal with personas in about an hour. Once you've nailed those down, you will generate more leads categorically. And Steve, I had to get some Star Trek in here somewhere, and those of you with your eyes peeled will find some Star Wars too. You've got to get into their heads. Now, I actually booked a Vulcan Mind Meld meeting with a client a couple of days ago, and he had to ask me what the hell I was talking about. And at that point, I went, how did I even let this person into my life?
Yeah.
So, Steve, do you have any opinions on anything we've said so far in terms of getting people focused? What are your views on making sure that people have the right goals going forward for the next 6 months? You've already mentioned some stuff. Was there anything that came to mind during that first session?
I think, yeah, as you say, necessity is the mother of all invention, isn't it? And this situation has, in a sort of unfortunate way, forced us to take a step back to look at the business. It may be a very, very different way. We're starting to see recruitment agencies look at new markets because they need to, which is great. We're starting to see people shift towards maybe more towards temp and contract because the market seems to be going that way as well. That seems to be recovering quicker than the perm side of things. So I think it's all intrinsically linked to the goals that people have, is knowing if when times are challenging, when times are difficult, you've got to make sure that you're sort of firing your bullets in the right direction. So making sure that you are truly focused in the right way. Are you going after the right market? And then certainly from a marketing point of view and a web presence point of view, are you saying the right things to the right people in the right way? So I think there's a fair bit of planning there that needs to go on, and just expecting to be able to do the same and get a better outcome is not where we need to be right now. So yeah, I think and also I'd encourage, and sometimes we don't do this as a business, I would encourage everybody, marketers especially, to speak to the frontline recruiters. They're speaking to candidates and clients, and they are our best source of information. So we really need to listen to the market, hear what's going on, so that we can adapt accordingly. So yeah, for me, it's about understanding where the opportunities are. When there's less opportunities, we've just really got to sort of dial into those, so we can make sure we're super focused, but also we can align our goals to them.
Perfect. So look for tips for Vulcan Mind Melding people. So we're going to talk about the 4 C's. We have to start with candidates because it trips off the tongue quite easily. Some of our clients right now need more candidates. Some of them need less. They're being drowned in them. Some of them think they don't need any candidates at all. And again, I would dispute that, because I feel that if we constantly work with this feast or famine approach, it's not a sustainable basis, and we're going to get tripped up. But we do know there's a lot of data out there to tell us that the best candidates are off the market within 10 days. So we need to think about that. We need to think about our processes and how our website will help us manage that product, if that's the right language, especially as if we don't manage them, they'll bugger off, which is not helpful to us.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point that there are some agencies out there, despite what the general market feeling might be, that are desperate for candidates, right? So although the market has shifted radically, and we'll talk about how you can win clients through your website shortly, there are still agencies out there, there are still market sectors that are desperately trying to find candidates. But to your point, you still want good candidates, you want the right candidates, because as an agency, what's changed is that you probably could have put forward 3, 4, 5 people that were reasonably suitable for a role. And what you now need to do is to actually ensure you're putting forward very, very good matches, almost absolutely spot on matches to requirements, because there's obviously more competition out there, and whether that's coming from other agencies or from direct applications. So you still are going to need candidates, and this market will change at some point. And maybe you want to be sort of future proofing for that as well. So importantly, you are still having a focus on attracting candidates. It's then critical that you engage with them properly, and then you keep them in your CRM, and you nurture them and you manage them for when you do need them. So yeah, don't think you don't need candidates. You absolutely do, probably now more so than ever.
So what can a website do to attract the right candidates? And obviously what we want to do is not just attract them, because having them swimming around the website and doing nothing is not appropriate. But also we want the right candidate, and we want to manage their expectations. That's really important. Now, Steve, you popped some content in these slides about drowning in candidates, etc. Talk to us about that.
I mean, obviously at the moment, I saw that job, that have been advertised, and this isn't in isolation, right? We're seeing more and more reports about jobs being advertised and direct employers, and I would guess agencies as well, receiving hundreds, if not thousands, of applications, right? That is just the reality of the market that we're in at the moment. So I guess the challenge to that is, what can we do to try and manage that as best we possibly can? And I think one of the things that we really need to have a focus on, and it's as always, there's no sort of secrets to any of this stuff. There's no new things here, but times do change. And I think we really need to invest the time into incredibly well-written adverts and job specs. I really, really do. And, as I've put there on the slide, I remember back, I was a recruiter myself, right? I did it for 10 years. I was an IT recruiter. I went through 2008, 2009, the sort of financial crash, and it was a horrendous time. But if I look at the actual data point of that, you could have some very, very experienced recruiters right now who've got 10 years experience that on face value you think are great recruiters, because they probably are, they almost certainly are, but they never would have worked a market like this, right? Now, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's different. They've not necessarily had to fight for jobs in the way that people back then did, because the market was the polar opposite to what it is now. So I think that maybe it's a forgotten art, or maybe even a skill that's not been taught, something that obviously you can certainly help with. But how do you actually take a great job specification from a client? How do you really get under the skin of what they need, and what it's going to take to be successful? Once you have that, then you can actually, produce that. You can put that on your website. And yes, of course, within reason, you can have screening questions, but you can't stop anybody from applying. And maybe people will sort of apply through a little bit of desperation at the moment. But if you can write the job spec in such a way, or the advert in such a way, that's very, very detailed, and equally as engaging, you might be able to minimize some of the applications that are coming through. You don't want to make it so tough that people don't respond and you put people off, but you do need to make it incredibly clear as to what's going to be successful. Now, you can only do that if you know what's going to be successful. So you have to get away from the back of a fag packet job specs from your clients. You really do need to invest the time to get to know them. The added benefit of that is it will differentiate you as a recruiter. Hopefully what you're looking for is twofold: is A, to get better ad response, but you're also hoping that that potential client is going to really buy into you, how you operate, the time that you take, the care that you show, the investment you make to ultimately try and save them time as well. They've also not been in this position before either, right? Any direct employer who advertises is going to be inundated with direct applications. They don't have the time, they don't have the inclination, and they probably don't have the skill set to manage it properly. So, now is the time that a hiring manager or manageress probably wants to use an agency more so than ever before, if they were to take a step back and think about it. We are there to find the best talent for their roles. So we need to make them aware of that we are offering not a recruitment service, but we're selling time saving and efficiency, right? And ultimately success. But we, to your mind map, we need to get in their heads and understand what it's going to take to be successful. And so all of the last, however long it's been, 10 years or so, that's been focused on candidate attraction, finding candidates, sourcing candidates. We've got to put the same amount of effort into client side. And, I remember when I started in recruitment, gentleman taught me, Jeff, I remember him fondly. He was brilliant. And he purely did client side recruitment. He didn't do anything candidate side. He would average, and I'm not joking, I would suggest an hour to an hour and a half taking a job brief, right? But he knew everything that that client wanted. And we had a very, very successful business model back then. But it all started from there. So yeah, challenging, because some people have never done it before. But I think, when we get those opportunities, if they're few and far between, we can't afford to waste them. To the conversion point, if you want to convert, then you really need to know what's going to convert. So yeah, really invest in the time with your clients, however you can do that these days, to get under their skin, understand the business, understand what's been successful. I think that's going to be absolutely critical to every recruiter moving forwards.
When we're looking at job adverts, people, we're talking about what's called decision content. So in the buyer's journey, you've got awareness, consideration, decision, and retention. When someone clicks on a job advert, they're making a decision to progress. And for what are they basing that decision on? So obviously, without going too much back into what Steve's just been very eloquently talking about, you really do need to think about reinvesting time in this. But it's that job adverts are being written in the way they were written 20 years ago, but the market's changed significantly, and a lot of content is now being digested online by very small devices, whilst those people who are digesting it are doing other things. So we need to think about that. The other thing we need to think about as marketers and recruitment leaders is, what other content do you have on your website that might be attracting the wrong people to those jobs in the first place? So yes, we need great talent, but we don't need any talent. And we really equally, if we're getting 1,000 applications for a receptionist job, which in itself by definition is a really tough job to do, if any of you have ever done anything like that, there's an argument to say that potentially all 1,000 people were just not relevant, but the spec was so poorly written, so generic, or maybe even the way that the job was marketed, because marketing a job is very different to writing an advert. That can cause a problem. So are you going down the buyer's journey route, or are you simply just posting content and hoping to God it works? We have to change our approach. Even pre-COVID, 60 to 70% of content was not used, was not effective. So we need to think about that. And it's that training piece around what training are recruiters actually being given. Only at the moment, 2 out of 5 recruiters are receiving training on job advert training. And even when I've looked at that training, because we do job advert training as well at Barclay Jones, it's pants training. It's let's make sure we put keywords in it. Let's make sure we have roles and responsibilities. Times have changed. We have to get into the personas of the people that we're trying to attract, as opposed to attracting anyone and everyone, especially when we're targeted on this. We're not a job centre. We're supposed to be something a lot deeper and a lot more consultative than that.
I think if you
other thing as well is, sorry, go on, Steve.
To say, just to take a very recent sort of data point, the guys at Adzuna put out some fascinating data this week that said the number of job postings that they're tracking throughout the UK, about 50% now of the pre-COVID market. So, if we've got 50% of the jobs we did have, we've got twice as much time to commit to writing them, right? So, it's one of those things is we, as recruiters and as salespeople, I have it in my current role, we see admin as a chore, something that we have to do, but actually it's part and parcel of being a very successful salesperson. Commitment to the CRM, commitment to the data, commitment to the admin. I think it is part and parcel of being a professional salesperson. And so we need to shift the mindset to it not being a chore and something you just have to do, but actually selling the benefits of doing it. And actually a well-written job spec that takes twice as long as right now will save you having to field 1,000 ad responses on Monday morning. So what would you rather do? Yeah, so we need to re-inspire the recruiters that actually it's a really crucial part of the job, not just something to tick and get out of the way on a Friday afternoon.
Job adverts are sales. Marketing is sales, and it's worth thinking about the content that you're generating. That job advert is the most important piece of content as a recruiter you're likely to generate that day. And as your website and your job boards are virtual recruitment consultants, do you really trust that virtual recruitment consultant has got your back whilst you're sleeping, whilst you're interviewing, whilst you're having a coffee on the train? So yeah, let's think about that. Let's think about the candidate experience. Let's make sure that, and I know Steve and I have often had a debate in the past about, is it experience or expectation? Candidates now expect a really crappy recruitment service. That doesn't mean that by definition their bar has changed or lowered. It just means, oh yeah, well, let's face it, they're not going to come back to me anyway, so what's the point of investing any time in this? It's not a helpful thing. And if COVID's going to do anything for us, it's going to help us reset that and say, do you know what? If the average candidate experience is really poor, we don't need to do much to improve what we're doing. I mean, you do, but we don't, if that makes sense. What could we do? How could we innovate? Crazy suggestions here as ever. So 5 things that we think you can do to help you attract, engage, convert, and retain candidates more effectively. And not just any candidates, but the ones that you genuinely want to work with. And let's not forget, in old money from a recruitment perspective, good recruiters, great recruiters would advertise a job and they'd have a surplus of great candidates at the end of that process that they could then take to market. That's how recruitment actually works. If you're a one-person recruitment business, that is how you would operate. you'd see how many other candidates coming in. You'd send 2 or 3 of them to the client, because any more than that, and you're admitting you don't really know what you're doing. That's kind of how it was. And then you'd take the rest and you'd actively market them out. And maybe 1 job advert a year would keep you going, because you'd have enough candidates left to place. Something to think about. So radically improve your job advert. I want you to think about candidate testimonials as well. We talked a little bit about this in the next part of the webinar, but really think about, I don't see, as someone who works with recruitment marketeers and works with recruitment sales leaders, I do not see enough great candidate case studies and testimonials on websites. Often because of this myth, well, clients don't come to my website. What's the point? There's a reason they don't come. It's because there's nothing there for them. Let's put some stuff there for them. But equally, testimonials around, Steve was great, Steve was lovely, Steve did everything I wanted him to do. No, Googleize them, optimize them. Think about your SEO people. What language would your clients be speaking? So Steve got me a great sales engineer who within 4 weeks was able to do A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, i.e. the things that person was looking for that other clients are likely to be looking for. But equally, the candidate testimonials, what are they saying? Again, Steve got me a job. I'm really sorry, the job centre could have done that. What specifically did Steve do that the average sales engineer would really respect? Think about gating your content as well. And by the way, all of these tips can be mashed throughout your 4 Cs, but thinking about gating your content to attract the right candidate. So God forbid you're giving all your content away, and God forbid you're giving it all away at attraction stage. What are you actually doing to manage the journey of the candidate? Just because they've applied for a job doesn't mean they're stuck with you for life. Just because they're going for an interview doesn't mean they're stuck with you for life. So could you create some gated content around interview tips that aren't for people that haven't gone through your pipeline yet? Why are you giving all your good stuff away to every Tom, Dick or Harriet? Jobs by email, the amount of recruitment leaders I've spoken to and said, right, so you've got these campaigns trying to find you candidates, but what about the candidates that have signed up to you already? The ones that are on jobs by email. And I've yet to meet a recruitment leader that's actually gone, oh yeah, we do that daily. We check who's signed up to jobs by email daily, and we're targeting those people. If anything, they'll go, we don't actually know how to get hold of that data. So think about speaking to your website administrators or providers and saying, if you've got that jobs by email widget switched on and God damn it, you need it right now, who is signing up for those jobs? Because that is your active candidate market.
Yeah.
And a toothpaste, sorry, I'm sorry, Steve, go for it.
That's a big part of what we do, right? You know, try not to make this too so, but we have that powered in the back end of all of our websites, is the jobs by email, whether that's latest jobs or similar jobs. And it's a hugely popular function. But again, you know, we draw the analogy, it's like having a gym membership but never go into the gym. It's pointless. You know, you've got the functionality, you have to invest the time to go in there and look at it. You know, I agree with you about testimonials. I think they're incredibly important. And I think we'll touch on those in a second. But yeah, jobs by email is a core part of the platform. You should be using it, and you need to make sure you're using it for obvious reasons.
Absolutely. So just again, this is about less content, more marketing. This is about looking at what you've got and saying, are you doing ready, aim, fire, or ready, fire, aim, aim, aim? We haven't got the option to do number 2 anymore, but marketers are renowned for creating more than enough content than is necessary and then having absolutely no time to generate any leads from it or even measure that. So again, that has to stop. We've got loads of advert hacks at Barclay Jones, and we've got courses that we can run. Put something in your chat if you want to know more about advert hacks, because it's bloody important stuff. Right, quick questions for chat, and again, then we'll move on because I'm interested in what CRM you have, because CRM has a big part to play in your website. Just chuck that into your chat and I'll move back to that later. Let's now talk about clients. So you have to ask yourself, what could your website do to attract and convert the right clients and manage their expectations and experience? Because again, your website is not a brochure. Your website was probably there while a lot of your clients, a lot of your colleagues are on furlough. Was it actually demonstrating what you do?
So
Let's use some stuff. Go for it, Steve.
I'm just going to jump in there and just say, I over the last few months, you know, we've looked at this more and more and more, and I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that your website can win you new clients and new business if you use it properly. Okay. Now, we might need to be brave. We might need to think differently. We might need to actually value the website and not see it as an afterthought. You know, we put, I've seen it firsthand what people spend on the CRM. Obviously, from previous roles, I see what people spend on advertising. And it's almost like that the website is, well, I've got to have one, I've done it, it's finished. You know, the website should never be considered as finished, right? The moment you just have a project with a fixed cost and say it's designed, it's built, it's live, then it's failed, right? It should evolve with your business, it should change, it should grow, it should adapt, right? So we need to be looking at the website and think, how can we use it to attract clients? How can we use it to win clients? And I genuinely think that with just a few little tweaks and changes and a slightly different approach, that you can see, you know, significant gains from that. I really, really do.
If your website is your virtual recruitment consultant, by the way, there's no if, because it is, especially at the moment, and it's there to generate what humans would do if they had the chance, then giving birth to it and then letting it rot, which is a terrible analogy, but actually it's the same. It's the same when we work with CRM clients, that when they implement that new system and then they go, right, everybody just use it. It doesn't work. Never works like that.
It's always on, and if you're not in the office, you're not able to get out to see people as easily as you once were. You're not able to go and register candidates in person or meet clients for coffee. You actually need your website to be working overtime. You know, it's got to be working, you know, 10 times harder than ever before for you, because for those people who do come and happen to sort of come across it, it's got to tell them everything. It's really got to show them what they want. So yeah, it's really, really important. I saw an interview recently. Oh, I can quiz you here, Lisa. Pop quiz. Do you know who the owner of the Washington Post is?
Well, it's not the Sky Man, is it? Tell me who it is.
Jeff Bezos, Mr. Amazon, right? So he owns the Washington Post. So I saw an interview with him not so long ago, and it's fascinating, right? Now, he talks about understanding who your customers are, which obviously lots of people do, right? But it really got me thinking, because he takes it probably one extra step down the line, if you like. And he says for them, their customers are the readers. And he said, because if we have loads of readers who come to the paper, then the advertisers will want to advertise. And so for him, it's that way round. And I thought long and hard about this over the last couple of months. And actually, what we're trying to do is to educate clients, i.e. the recruitment agencies, that yes, from a Volcanic point of view, of course we're selling to them, of course we are, but we're actually selling to their end customer. So we are selling to their potential next hiring manager. We are selling to their next candidate who's looking for a job. Okay. And you need to look at your website in that way, that actually, yes, it's for your business, but actually it's really for your market in that sense. Yeah. So as long as, you know, if people are coming to you in the middle of the night, you're not there, you're not able to answer the phone, you're not able to respond, then they need to find what they want very easily and very quickly. Because as you said, you know, experience versus expectation, we live in an on-demand world. If they struggle to find it, they're going to give up and move on, right? You know, if I can book a taxi at the swipe of a finger, if I can just flick on Spotify and get, you know, one song out of an album that I don't have to buy, I want to go onto a website and get what I want when I want it. So it's got to be easy, but you categorically can win clients from a good website, but you have to change your tack.
It's about, again, having those goals. Are you one of the 14%? You're going to lose clients naturally, but don't forgive yourself for that. Definitely don't forgive yourself if they leave you because of poor service. But again, what do they consider to be great service? Do we even know? Placing a candidate might not be enough. Keeping them abreast of what you're doing, giving them confidence that actually when you contact them, it's a good use of their time. You can sell to your existing clients through a website too. Go for it, Steve.
Now that's the key thing. So the killer question here is, right, because I'm sure everybody wants more clients, is, you know, is what do they want to see? If they come to the website for a couple of minutes, what do they want to see? So I would suggest that they want to see the type of the talent that you represent. So for years, you know, we've put up featured jobs. This is my hot job, right? Why aren't we putting up, these are my featured candidates this week, right? And we've done some work around that to adapt some of our sites so you can really promote some of your best talent. So if somebody comes to you in the middle of the night and they think, I wonder, have they got the right type of people? Oh, yes, they have. And then you can register interest in those specific candidates. Okay. To your point, if they're going to be inundated with applications, they probably want to know what your process is. We take that for granted. Some people don't know all of the amazing steps you go through. So do you talk about taking the job spec? Do you talk about preparing the candidates? So probably want to understand how you go from that. And then going back to your point of testimonials, I could sit there as an owner of an agency saying my business is brilliant, but nobody will ever believe me. I own the business. I have to say that, right? And I think we have a slide somewhere where we've got the picture of Richard Branson, right? If he tells us, probably a bad example right now, but if he tells us that Virgin Holidays are amazing, we just don't believe him, because why would we? But we'll quite happily go onto TripAdvisor and buy in 100% to people we've never met and never will do. So we live in a world of this sort of third-party validation where we see a testimonial and we'll happily sort of, put our mortgage on it. Well, Fred Bloggs said it's brilliant, so it must be right. Well, okay. But why don't we employ that on the website? So if we have testimonials from clients where we've had success from, let's get them up there front and center. So when the next hiring manager comes to the site, we're not hitting them with last week's or pre-COVID content. We're showing them relevant content. This is what clients are saying about us right now, the amazing job we've done for them. Here's some of the amazing talent that you can look at, obviously anonymized, and register interest in. This is the process that we will go through to save you time and get this right. And that needs to be up the front end of the website. And they can do that at midnight, right? But if they have to go digging for it, they're going to move on very, very quickly. So, we recently wrote a short article on is now the time to change your navigation, right? And we were genuinely talking about your website navigation, the about us, the meet the team, the news. Who cares? This should be client successes, featured candidates, our process. Why don't we take the bold steps to maybe challenge the norm to do things in a slightly different way and give the market what they want? So sorry, I got a bit passionate about that one.
Never apologise for that. That's all good. The data speaks for itself. We need to be more effective with how we are as recruiters in order to generate the right level of leads. We need to be clever with our content. Again, if our content is candidates, our content is our clients, then actually peer recommendations, testimonials, best candidates. Oh, and by the way, something that maybe we should have said in this is when you go into the candidate piece and you're talking about candidates who want the best experience, often they just want to understand what their experience is going to be. So if you are going to market your candidates as the top, featured, etc., tell your candidates that that's an option that you've got for them. Tell them that that could be their winning thing, that working with you allows them to be front and center on your website, albeit from an anonymized perspective. Manage their experience. Tell them how you're going to manage their experience as well, so that they don't have expectations that are beyond what you're capable of delivering. You're not magicians, but you are bloody clever. So now we come to Richard Branson.
Yeah, you could almost trade that.
Go for it.
I was saying you could almost trade that for exclusivity, right? Now, I'm sure certain candidates will want to sort of, have some options, but maybe you could say, look, if you're willing to work with me exclusively, I'm happy to list you as one of my featured candidates for the next 5 days. Whatever it is, there's ways to get these people to buy in. So, yeah.
Let's talk about, obviously, you've got your Recruitment Pulse survey results. Now, no doubt, and we don't have Lily on a cloud, but if guys, you want access to that Pulse report, please put the word Pulse in your chat and we'll get that sent across to you. Do you want to talk a little bit about the stats that you popped on there, Steve?
Yeah, so we did, this is the second survey we've done actually with the same partner. So we partnered up with Talent Nexus. These guys do some fascinating things with advertising. So, if anybody spends a lot of money with Indeed, they're probably worth speaking to. These guys could probably save you some money straight away in terms of your advertising spend. But we did a survey with them right at the start of the COVID period to see how the market was reacting. And this was the follow-up, and there's some fascinating results in there in terms of how things have changed and what the sort of view is sort of 6 months down the line. So, nothing, unsurprising in there, but 90% prioritizing winning new clients, right? So lots of people in the same boat, and 69% of people worried about, winning new business and ultimately how they're going to go about that. But because this was a dual survey, so agencies and in-house recruiters, you've got that fascinating insight there that almost 50% of in-house recruiters are concerned about the amount of applications. So maybe we can tap into that. Maybe that has to be our focus, and we have to almost volunteer that when we're engaging those people to say, look, I'm sure that one of your biggest challenges right now is managing the increase in applications whilst protecting your brand and giving a great experience. But that's what we're here to do, right? We are here to filter through the noise. We're here to not bombard you. But in return, if you want one or two amazing candidates, I need, an hour of your time, and maybe I need an hour of the actual decision makers' time to get this right. So there's some fascinating insight in there as to not only how agencies are reacting, but how the in-house side of things are reacting. So I think it's definitely worth having a look at it. It's obviously free. Go in there, look at the feedback, and maybe that might just help you to align your approach when you're sort of pitching new customers.
Absolutely. Think as well about what you're doing to actively manage the process of client generation. Don't abdicate it. So again, when I'm mentoring marketeers, one of the first questions I ask is, show me the leads that you're generating and tell me the process by which you're actually getting them converted. So the term MQL, marketing qualified lead, is really important. Do you understand the personas that you're trying to bring in? And when you bring them in, do you even know that they're then qualified by sales qualified leads? And actually, most of the mentees that I have to begin with will pass a lead on, i.e. verbally, bit of paper. They're never putting it on the CRM, which scares the crap out of me if I'm honest. They're then handing it over and going, I've done my bit. No. Sit down with those recruiters, make sure that you've qualified the right lead. If you haven't, have a good hard look at yourself in the mirror and go back and try again. Get feedback. Make sure if they don't qualify the lead, it's their fault, not yours. That sounds aggressive, but you have to be more assertive as business leaders and marketeers. If salespeople are not converting great leads, it's a training issue at their end, and you need to flag that, especially at the moment. So think about MQLs. They have to be SQLs. Actively manage that process. Figure out what clients you actually need to bring into the business. Again, when I work with marketers, they often don't even know the targets of the salespeople that they're trying to attract. So even if they did have Lead Feeder or Lead Forensics switched onto their website, they wouldn't know what a great client looked like. Now, Steve also mentioned about hot candidates, and I know we've got a slide where we talk about that. So obviously, this is the what's called Volcanic Go. Do you want to have a quick chat about with people? I know you've mentioned it generically, Steve, but just talk about Volcanic and how that can actually deliver some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, all of our websites are built on the same underlying platform. So, whether you're a one-person startup or your manpower at the top end, everybody who's invested into Volcanic sits ultimately on the same platform. Volcanic Go was something that we really sort of developed over the last 12 months, but became far more relevant during the sort of COVID times. It's more theme-based. And it allows agencies to get access to what we consider to be best-in-class technology, but at a very affordable price. But also, we can deploy it very, very quickly. So we can probably build one of these sites. I think the timescale now is about 8 hours. Okay. Now, whether it's on Volcanic Go, which is the theme-based one, or the Pro model, which is the sort of the full-fat version, is almost irrelevant. What we have done is we've brought in this section here, which is featured candidates. Now you can present as many as you want within reason, but the beauty here is if you come in at 10 o'clock at night and you think, Daniel looks great, you can click on Daniel. There's a form that sits behind it. So you can, again, to your point of gated content, you can register your interest. That sends an email notification through to the recruiter in question. And that means when I walk in the morning, I have a red hot lead to follow up on. Also, what it does do, though, is if there are any potential recruitment managers looking at the website, they are seeing the quality of individual that you represent. Okay, so again, rather than them having to wait till tomorrow morning, having to call you, getting distracted and going elsewhere, you're making it almost on demand and readily accessible. So, it's not, let's be honest and humble about it, it's not a huge feature, right? There's not a wealth of functionality that sits behind it, but it's utterly relevant in the marketplace right now. So, a light touch solution to a very, very real problem. And I think having this very, very present, some websites will have hot jobs on the homepage, right? We've seen that time and time again. What's the problem with having some of your best talent on your homepage right now? So the minute somebody comes, they get a feel for who you are and what you do. So yeah, this is part and parcel of all of the sites that we deploy now. There's obviously no obligation to have it. Not everybody will want it, but it's had huge success and interest over the last few months.
Again, they're our product and we don't have them on our website, which I find incredible. So this is the opportunity that we have to get that sorted. Right, so moving on. spot the Star Wars character. Extra points if you even know who this is.
Oh,
Anyway.
isn't it just work bar? Yeah.
So what has Star Wars got to do with content? A webinar for another day. Maybe actually, Volcanic, we could set up a Star Wars, Star Trek content website analogy piece. But anyway, we want to trap our clients. We have to lure them in. We need to make sure we know who they are. We need to create a little bit of awareness content to sort of get them to think about what they need. We then need to show them what we can do for them, and then we need to get them into a space where they're clearly going to make a decision. We need to think about those decision pages. I don't see enough of them or strong enough versions of them on the websites that I often go in and audit. So testimonials, this third-party validation, not just on your testimonials page, litter them throughout your content. When I'm judging awards, for example, I was doing that this morning for Talent. I'm looking for content around innovation, but what people thought about it. When I'm looking at websites, I'm looking for content, quotes, throughout the website about how people feel about the product, not just click on the testimonials page, albeit when people do click on the testimonials page, they're pretty serious about moving forward with you. Can you see them do that? Are you making it easy for them to find that content? And when they do, are you watching to see who's actually clicked? Are you driving people even to that place? Again, take control of that buyer's journey. Think about Meet the Team as well. I see that as decision-making content. So what does your Meet the Team page say? I'm a recruiter. I've been doing it for 8 years. I'm amazing. I always hit target. No. On those Meet the Team pages, what are the clients and candidates saying about those consultants? They are decision pages. Again, if people are looking at those pages, is it because they've rooted around for ages? No, people don't do that anymore. Or have you driven them there? But have you got them now? It's a trap. General Akbar. And contact us. Seriously, if I go to a contact us page, oh, go for it, Steve.
I was just going to say on the consultants, I think it's a really important point. Okay, there are some amazing recruiters out there, but we don't necessarily highlight them or showcase them in the way in which we should, probably because we didn't have to, right? But if I was recruiting, which I am ironically at the moment, and I was on a website and I looked at Meet the Team, and there was somebody there who had a wealth of experience, and it spoke about the market that they operated in. It spoke about the network that they had access to. I can then start to buy into that as somebody that I would want to work with. So again, why not have a recruiter spotlight? If you have somebody who's worked in an industry, in a niche, in a vertical, has got a really strong network, well connected, does a huge amount around referrals, talk openly about that, because again, it feeds into the process. That's the type of recruiter I would want to work with, because it's almost not about them. It comes back to me. I'm thinking, well, they're going to do a great job. They're going to do it very quickly, and that's what I'm buying into. I'm buying into that element of efficiency and success. So let's not undervalue the amazing recruiters we have in our business, and let's actually showcase them. Let's make a big deal about them and be proud of those assets.
And then moving on to the Contact Us page, have a look at your Contact Us pages, people. Is it contact us, as in anyone contact us, everyone contact us, or are you optimizing that Contact Us page for the people that you need to talk to? So are you talking about the sectors that you specialize in? Are you mentioning the typical kinds of people that you want to contact you? Again, never underestimate the power of that page. It's really, really critical to your business development. And it's not just sort of like the zone that people just fall into. If they're there, they're bloody serious. So let's make sure that we attract the right people to that page. When we look at who's coming to that page, that's our lead generation, our candidate generation, our colleague generation. Think silver service, not buffet. Yeah, you're not just trying to create loads of stuff and hope to God people pick it. You're serving it to them, and as a result of that, you're giving it to them because you figured out that that's what they want. That's a better website. So that might be a webinar for another day. And let's move on to now colleagues very quickly, because I'm aware of time. Again, your website is there to generate the 4 C's: candidates, clients, colleagues, and cash, especially at the moment where we've gone through a bit of a disruption in the force. And we now need to reattract the right people to our business. But also, we need to make sure that our website is there for our colleagues to help them sell the product. But again, when I speak to recruiters, when I go in to audit their systems and processes, I often come across recruiters that either think the website's pants or don't even really engage with the website at all. They don't know what's on it. Now, the lovely Kevin Green, industry guru and influencer, will often say that the most important part of our business is the intangibles, the people, 85%. And if we've learned anything through the last 6 months, we know that bringing them back is difficult, letting them go is even harder. But now they're coming back, or they've been there all along, but now we need to start skilling them up. We need to think about what that means. Now, Steve's created some content around basically think about who's out there on the market. So Steve, talk to us about that, how basically websites can attract new talent into the business.
Yeah, no, mindful of time, as I'm sure you are, Lisa. So, but I think, as we said, your website, it can win you clients. We've spoken about that. It can win you candidates. It's been doing that for the last 10 years. But right now, it can also win you your next consultant. For very, very unfortunate reasons, there's probably some amazing talent out there on the marketplace. And as recruiters start to lighten up a bit, and we're seeing some decent successes in the marketplace now, which is great, that great talent will get snapped up. So again, what can you do on your website when people are looking at you? They've not got to the stage of wanting to pick up the phone. Be brave, showcase some of the amazing stuff that you do. That you do it, but there's always this reluctance to talk about it. So, there's some of the things that we do at Volcanic. We've got the Wellbeing Hub. We've got a big focus on training and learning internally. We've got our National Inclusion Week next week. We share all of this very, very openly in terms of what's on our website internally. So if somebody comes to you and sees all the amazing things that you do, and maybe there's some testimonials from consultants saying, this agency is the best agency I've ever worked at because of all of these bits we do. You'll typically see it that, they'll take pictures of the five-a-side football match that the team went and played to, or the summer picnic that they went to. Obviously a bit harder these days, but all of these little bits that you do, these social engagements that make the company an amazing place to work at, you should be proud and showcase those so people really buy into the agency and want to work for you. If all of that amazing content and that fun stuff is then interspersed with work at, work for us, then people can get a real feel for it. And again, it goes back to, if Lisa's saying, come and work at Barclay Jones, it's amazing. That's very different to the team at Barclay Jones showcasing all of the great stuff that they do independently. It's far more authentic, right? And it seems to have far more weight. So yeah, absolutely. Use this time wisely to attract your next best recruiter.
The thing as well is you've already got your clients, your consultants within the business. So from that perspective, you also need to think about what you're doing with them right now in order to generate that level of testimonial. We know that 2/3 of quitters last year quit through a lack of training, but at the same time, we also know that continuous training improves sales by 50%. And of course, what this webinar is all about is how websites can generate more sales. You need your recruiters talking about the development opportunities that they have and how much money they're making on the back of that. We equally know that recruiters spend too much time not doing the right stuff because they've probably got so much data, so many systems, not enough process. For example, they're spending 13 hours a week sourcing candidates. So what are you doing as marketers and leaders to speed up that process so they don't have to spend all this time and waste it, so that they can do some interesting things with the leads that you're generating for them? So you need to think about how your website can generate time for your recruiters to be effective, because right now, look at the stats, look at the data. They are wasting time doing the wrong thing. We have a stat in our business that if we can save a recruiter 1 hour a day, and you need to think about this as well, if you can save your recruiters 1 hour a day, and they have a relatively decent target of 100 grand a year, then you could potentially help them bill an extra 12,500. Keep that stat in your mind, because that's a very powerful stat. So to finish off the colleagues and consultants bits, and then we'll wrap up with cash, is we've got to start getting general Akbar, not going it's a trap, or rather the client thinking it's a trap, but thinking what a clever way of doing it. We've got to get those decision pages nailed down. As recruitment marketers, I see too much awareness and consideration content being created, and the decision pages are very fluffy. We need to make sure we create gated content that can help recruiters trap their clients. And we need to make it easier for people to see that stuff. But then we need to make sure that website is there for recruiters to do their job. Otherwise, it's just a brochure again. So now we need to demonstrate that cash can generate money, or not rather, websites can generate cash for their business. Remember, this is the 4 C's: candidates, clients, colleagues, and cash. We know that cash is king, but it comes in many formats. And it's not just the bottom line at the end of the month where marketers have probably lost the will to live because job applications are being logged as all coming from the job site that begins with A, as opposed to actually where they might have come from your own website. So think about candidates, applications, interviews, placements. Think about the journey candidates are going along and whether or not as marketeers and leaders you can measure that journey. Think about the MQLs that website is generating, the marketing qualified leads, and also, is that website retaining clients? Are your existing clients coming back? And also reconversion, old clients that potentially need waking up. What's your website doing to reconvert those older people in your market? And not older, but older. And think opportunity cost, the time thing again that we've been talking about. How much time is your website saving the business, saving the recruiters, saving that resource? What is that time worth? 1 hour a day for a 100 grand recruiter is worth 12.5 grand a year. That is a stupid amount of money. And then look at your media tech spend versus your website spend. Are you spending, like my other clients, 200 grand a year, not using their CRM system and buying loads of other tech to compensate for crap data and crap processes? Bad move. Recruiters want more time, they want more placements, they want more commission, but they don't have time to follow up the leads that they've got, and they don't have time to convert or retain the candidates they've got because they're spending too much time sourcing. What is your website doing to convert that time into cash? The stat again, but think about it from a 10, 20, 30 perspective, a 30-person recruiter will generate nearly £250,000 more cash if they generate an extra hour a day per recruiter. What are you doing with your website to generate that hour? Equally, how do you show your ROI across your 3 Cs? Do you keep it to yourself? Lots of marketers do that because they're frightened of actually talking about what it is they do. I was looking at some marketing award submissions this morning. Not good enough. They were talking about the wrong data, how many followers they've got on LinkedIn. Nobody cares. The bank manager certainly at the moment does not. Do you only demonstrate vanity stats? Or are you bullish and you get those sanity stats and you chase them through? Now, if we had time, I would absolutely bring Steve into this because he has a huge amount of insight into this. We've had lots of chats about insight, but there's an actual article out there that's pretty damn cool that talks about website metrics and those that are critical. And no doubt Volcanic will have some really cool content that they will send you beyond this webinar as well. Steve, are you urgently pressing to get any more content yourself into the cash piece, or would you like me to move on?
No, I think you've covered it right. I think from my point of view, as agencies, and I ran a large agency in my past as well, we spend huge amounts on tech trying to solve problems, fix problems, and we don't necessarily put the same amount of investment or thought or effort maybe into the front end website, and that's, as a rule, is the first thing that people see. And as the age-old saying goes, you get one chance to make a first impression. So it needs to be good, it needs to be relevant. I also think that we need to change the mindset that the website needs to be a living, breathing project. It can never be considered finished, and we need to be going in there constantly, updating it, changing content, changing messaging, keeping it fresh, keeping it live. And in the same way that we don't want salespeople to think that admin is a chore and an obligation, actually see that this is an incredibly important resource. And maybe it's the equivalent of having 2 recruiters working the night shift, right, or the weekend shift. That is what it's ultimately doing for you. And if you get it right, it will absolutely win you your next client. It will find you your next recruiter, but only if you put the effort into it. It means you need a system that you've got control over. You don't want to have to be calling up all the time, getting somebody to make changes for you at significant cost. You want to get your hands on it. You want to own it. But in the same way we wanted to drive recruiters to use the CRM, we have to drive ourselves to use the website to get the results out that we want.
So think about your CRM, as you just mentioned. Think about the data that's on that. Are they monetized? Is there a value there? A webinar for another day, but that has to be the goal for the rest of 2020 and 2021. We talked about personas previously, so make sure that you're aware of what they are. And if you need more information or maybe a template on what you're doing with personas, then put the word personas in your chat and I'll send you my template on how to generate personas in 15 minutes. You need to think about how you're going to link your website and data and CRM, and it doesn't necessarily have to be technological. It can be via humans doing stuff and pulling ropes. Yeah, that's just as good in a lot of cases. Think about your conversion campaigns. Think about your reconversion campaigns. Think about the lifetime value, that LTV of the stuff that you're generating. Don't just take a hit and say, well, we've generated you a client. What's the value of that client to the business now? And on average, how long do you keep clients for? 5 years, 6 years? How often do you replace with them? What's the lifetime value of that candidate and client? And again, focus on personas, not just everyone. There's too much content out there that's generic, useless, and will bottleneck your inbox with crappy candidates and clients. So your takeaways, we talked about this at the beginning to wrap up. Candidates, clients, colleagues, and cash. All four are critical to your virtual recruitment consultant knowing what it needs to do to bring stuff in for you. If you could go onto your website right now and do anything differently, what would that be? To quickly pop into your chat and message Steve and I outside this webinar, what actions are you going to deliver now? This isn't just a tips webinar. What are you actually going to do? Pop into your chat and leave us a message, and then go and have some lunch, and then crack on with the tips and the action points you've got written down. Anything else you want to say today, Steve?
No, I mean, thank you for your time as always. It's always a pleasure to chat. As I said, I think I was quite sort of passionate about it. I think we need to sort of re-look at the way, or reconsider the way we look at our websites, right? It shouldn't be an afterthought. I've got one, it's done. I think we need to just appreciate its importance in the tech stack, the value that it can bring as long as we put the effort into it. If anybody wants us to look at their website and give some general open feedback on it, more than happy to do that. We've been running some website audits for some of the membership groups recently for some of their agencies during COVID, just to share, what improvements could be made. If you'd like us to do that, more than happy to do that. And equally, if anybody wants to just pick my brains on anything we've discussed today, forgetting the sales aspect of it, more than happy to have a conversation. So drop me a note directly, or website CRMs, or anything else in the recruitment tech stack. I've got no issues with that at all, Lisa.
Lovely. Let's wrap it up. We've gone over time, but I'm hoping that was a good use of your time. The webinar will be available very soon for you to rewatch and probably chop into 4.